The way the people think becomes important, but most importantly is the way the entrepreneur thinks, because that is what drives you. And if we talk about the psyche is your whole mindset. It is your soul. It is the way, the things you value. It is about the way you perceive things, interpret the world, the way you see things, and therefore the way you think. And it is quite apart from behavior. It is your psyche that will determine the way you behave. And so every enterprise that is started is driven by the psyche of the entrepreneur. If the entrepreneur gets it wrong, the enterprise gets it wrong. So it's very important to pay attention or to increase your awareness on how do I think as an entrepreneur running this business. When I feel restless, what does it mean to me, and how does it affect the decisions I make so that this enterprise grows? And we'll look at some of the codes. This one is high tech. Yes. Okay. All right. So now, if I want to look at some of these codes, now why aren't you going?
I think you're drawing
Forward.
All right. So which one do I use? This one. Okay. All right. So now let's look at some of these codes. When it says, when opportunity knocks, most people think about the noise. I'd like you to think about it. When opportunity knocks, most people think about the noise rather than who is coming in. You know, and you know when somebody's banging loudly on your door, it's like, hey, who is that? Why are you making so much noise? And you're not thinking about who is coming in. Now, for an entrepreneur, it's very important for you to just let the noise go into the background and identify who is coming in. You've got to be able to train your mind so that the noise is always in the background and you pick the gems that nobody notices. That is what makes an entrepreneur. You're driving along the road, you see a very bushy area, and everybody's saying, you can't KMA or AMA clean up this area, and immediately an idea occurs to you. I could start a business here by doing so and so. It makes you different, it sets you apart. And so you realize that whereas everybody thinks you are crazy, you meet other entrepreneurs and you're very, very comfortable because nobody thinks your idea is crazy and it thinks, oh, this can actually work. So where others are asking why we should do this, you are asking, why not? And this is what Oscar Wilde said. And Galbraith said that the great entrepreneur accomplishes his act of conception at the price of his own extinction. What does this mean, or what warning does this give to us as entrepreneurs and the way we think? Can anybody help us out? Stop at nothing.
The things you're going for can kill you.
The things you're going for can kill you. And a lot of entrepreneurs kill their own businesses because of the way they think. And I'll show you a graph later on about how this works. And so if at the beginning, at the inception of the business, the enterprise, we are not fully aware of this and take steps to forestall it, the very things that make us succeed are the very things that will kill us. And we'll look at that later on. And then, of course, this is me saying that entrepreneurship is a subset of enterprise growth. We think we are the totality of enterprise growth. No, if you don't recognize that entrepreneurship is a very critical subset, but it is a subset. of enterprise growth, then we get into trouble later on. Life is not fair, but it's words, and indeed you get what you negotiate for. Entrepreneurs are always negotiating. We have a dream, it's big, but we don't have all the resources. But we are determined to start with what we have. And so we get into a phase when we begin of being what I call master boy. You're the same person who opens your door, you sweep and dust the table, you sit there, you're the accountant, you're everything at the same time at the beginning. But you must be planning that this is going to go on for just the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. But there must be a cut-off point. It is when we don't recognize that this can be, there has to be a cut-off point that we fall into this. But I'm just going on about this. This I thought was most interesting. Once you become an entrepreneur, you find the company of non-entrepreneurs a lot harder to be around. And you've seen things they haven't. The wavelengths alter. It's that simple. Can anybody share an experience with us when you've been with somebody who you're trying to share something and the person just does not get it? And you think it's so simple, and why doesn't he understand what? And that attitude can also, as much as it projects us, it can also kill us. I remember once there was somebody else, one of our clients I was working with, and he was waiting for a loan in the bank. And so I asked them, how are you going to, or what makes you think that this bank will give you money? And he says, oh, my friend, he got money, and he's in those days it was Centralina, and Lehman Brothers was encouraging farmers to, and he succeeded. So why? I will make the same kind of money. I said, look, the bank does not operate on your feelings and your excitement and your enthusiasm. It's a matter of hard facts. What happened? How much was put in? How much did you get? Where is the market? And so on and so forth. And so, as much as these things make us different, they are also likely to kill us when we are not aware that we have a psyche that is different. Now, everybody wishes that your business will grow like this in a straight line, from minimal growth to potential growth, and you're just going no hitches. But what happens in the middle? We are kind of crisscrossing and going zigzagging, and then we come back on the path, and then sometimes we actually pause, or we actually grow to a stage where we become so restless, but we don't know what to do to go to the next stage of success. And so once we acknowledge in our thinking, the beginning, that this is how business is going to be for us. It's not just a straight path, but it's rather crazy paving to be able to get us to get there, but we will get there, then it is easy for us to deal with things that come up. So now, what and why do we want to talk about the psyche? Remember that I said the psyche is about, or it has its root meaning in the soul, or the mind, and that it breathes life into things. And so an entrepreneur's psyche must have the right kind of breath that you put into your business. Remember, you are the driving force. Everything gravitates around you. And it is important that what you think determines your behavior. And the way you behave will start the culture of the enterprise that you're wishing to grow. So if you do it in a haphazard manner, you tend to follow that kind of path. I remember very well at that time I had, in fact we were the first company that started making kente bags in this country. And in those days, I mean, things were good because there had no competition. Nobody had thought about making a kente bag. And we got into export. So in the 80s, 83, 81, when people were suffering, we were not suffering, even though we lived in Ghana, because we had export orders going out. And the consultant came in and said, the way you're growing, she said, you're growing too fast for your own good. But I didn't understand it. And I didn't bother to to ask for explanation. I was too excited about seeing the monies coming in all the time. And I said, look at this consultant. That's how I started. The ego of a consultant is one of your greatest enemies. And so 3-4 years down the line, we had a problem with our, in fact, most of our export was going to one major importer in the States, P1. And when they changed their policy of moving from Africa to Latin America, they virtually shut my, outfit out in a week. And I had always told myself that, if anything happens, I can turn this thing around in 2 months. It took me 2 years of pain. And why? Because my structures were not balanced. And I'm sure that is what Fitzgerald and Sam are trying to do with you so that you don't fall into that kind of thing. Balanced growth. Your markets, your finances, your people, and your structures must fit. I had a phenomenal growth in terms of turnover, but I did not have supporting structures and systems to hold all this together. I had people, but not enough. The bottom was very good, but the top was very thin. And so, if you have in your thinking and your psyche a knowledge that the way I think about these things, because I didn't work in a formal system for a very long time. I think I was with Unilever for 2 years or 3 years. And at that time, nobody was talking about entrepreneurship. In fact, it was an embarrassment to say that you are going to university and you were running your own business, in those days. And so because of all that, I lacked systematic behavior. If I wanted to do something, I did it. But after a while, you need systems. And you need to know how to keep your books, you need to be able to have a strategic plan, even if it's a one-page plan, and so on. All these things didn't exist for me. And then, like I'm saying, so the psyche or the way you think that drives the organization will determine what and how to grow. What do we want to grow this year? And how do we want to grow it? If you get it wrong, the enterprise gets it wrong. The next thing is, how do I quickly identify illusions that are going on in my business? Especially the illusion of apparent growth, which is really insidious integration. It is integration. And that's what happened with me. I was just looking at one side of the business and it was growing rapidly. Instead of it, giving me alarm bells, I was rather excited about it because I did not have the psyche to recognize that something was going to happen. And then all thinking models. I mean, the kind of model I used in the 80s, for heaven's sake, you can't use it in this century. Here you are trying to hook me up into all this haptic, and you see, I'm fumbling about, how to get it. But the thing is to recognize what is it now. One of the main things of the psyche of an entrepreneur is to be in the now. Learn to be in the now and create your future. Otherwise, you depend on old things that have happened, old successes, and then you begin to dip. So the old thinking models cannot and will not work in this rapidly changing business environment. And for those of you who've mentioned it, I've always told you the story of how we have become virtual now. When we had posh offices in cantonments and so on and so forth, they were paying like $3,500 a month. Now I have nothing. In fact, my whole life is rented out. Rented out is not the word. I'll come up with the word that is used. It's outsourced. That's the word I'm looking for. And so I'm not paying all these, and we are getting bigger than we were at that time. And so for you, I think you are even lucky to have this opportunity of having an incubator sort of thing where you can have some peace and work at very cheap rate. So now, let's see what we have on the next slide.